Good afternoon, Pranav Dar. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Social and Healthcare Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We will start with apologies for absence, agenda item 1. Steve?
I've received no apologies, Chair, for today's meeting. I believe everyone is present. So.
Agenda item 2, declarations of interest, including whipping declarations. Any members would like to make a declaration? Councillor Thew.
The old day, yes, I'd like to declare a personal and prejudicial interest in item 8, as my mother's property has a deferred payment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thew. Any other members would like to make declarations? Can't see anybody indicating, so I'll take that as a no. Agenda item 3 is urgent matters as agreed by the Chair. There are none. Agenda item 4 is minutes of the previous meeting, which took place on the 15th of January. They're on pages 5 to 8. Moved by Councillor Mackie, seconded by Councillor Healy. All those in favour?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Agenda item 5 is the forward work programme. Starts on pages 9, and the action tracker. Now I'll pass over to Steve for this.
Thank you, Chair, and members will notice that I'm a substitute today for Margaret, who's unfortunately not very well today, so apologies for that. I have to say I'm not familiar with the work programme for the committee, so I will take it as read that you've read Appendix 1 for the work programme and note the items there that are scheduled for the March meeting coming up, and obviously June and July. The committee doesn't meet in April or May because of the Welsh Government elections and the team moving to work on the elections work related to that. The action tracking document on Appendix 2, similarly, there are a number of open items, and I will take an action back to just follow those through to make sure that they are updated accordingly, because I know there are quite a few there. I can give you a very brief update on from the January, where it was referred to the committee coordinating working group for consideration about the budget items coming to this committee. I think what that working group are currently looking at is the cross-cutting themes across all overview scrutiny committees to make sure there's no overt duplication. So they are still looking at that as a possibility to how that could be managed, so it doesn't create additional workload for the finance team, but also to mitigate any duplication of reporting. So that will be picked up again at their next meeting, which is due to take place in April this month. Not this month, in April. But happy to take any questions or items for suggestion on the forward work programme, Chair.
It was just what you were mentioning about. I've had occasion this week of dealing with someone who was dealing with social services and housing, and there was no crossover. They were each not able to talk to each other because of GDPR. So I just wondered if there's scope for interdepartmental triaging for various departments that would ease that situation for finance purposes, or what, there's crossover in so many different ways. I just wondered if there's if there could be sort of a triage, would we get over the GDPR issue from the outset rather than protracted discussions and just hearing half a story from each person. It would make life a lot easier. Thank you.
Chair, I'll take that as an action just to find out how that can work. The item referred to is more of the scrutiny work programme is being duplicated rather than the actual. I'll take that as an action to find out for you for that one. Yeah, I'll take that as an action to find out. Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between strategic and scrutiny functions and operational. And what I'm hearing is that we might need to have a look at that case study from an operational perspective, because we should be putting the resident first and working with them to share information that's safe and appropriate with good governance. And if we haven't got that right, then we can look at that. We have a monthly meeting think it's monthly or 6 weekly, with housing. So myself, Vicky Clark, as the chief officers and our senior managers meet to make sure that our approaches are aligned, that we're working together, because a lot of people with social care needs have housing needs, and a lot of people with housing needs have social care needs. So there's absolute synergy between those two portfolios. So maybe if we catch up and we could look at making sure that we've got those conditions right so that we can deliver the best operational service without people having to repeat their story or, yeah, absolutely. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thew. Do any other members have anything they'd like to put forward for the forward work programme or comments on the action tracking? Doesn't look like it. So could I ask for a mover for the 3 recommendations? They are the usual ones that we consider the forward work programme, that the facilitator in consultation with the chair can vary it in between meetings, and the committee notes the progress made on outstanding actions.
Mel Buckley said yes.
Councillor Buckley, is that to move? Thank you very much. Seconder, Councillor Healy. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the Council Fund Budget 2026-27, final closing stage. And for this, I'll hand over to Gary Ferguson and Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We're clearly reaching the latter stages now of our budget planning for the 26-27 financial year, and the Council budget setting meeting is scheduled for the afternoon of the 24th of February. So this is the last in a series of reports to relevant overview and scrutiny committees. By way of background, I'll be relatively brief because I'm aware that quite a few of you have probably heard the same spiel a number of times already now. Back in November, we received the provisional settlement, and a summary of the key headlines impacts were reported to Cabinet and Corporate Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee in December. And at that stage, there was a remaining budget gap still to find for the Council of 9.519 million, which we will need to bridge to enable it to set a legal and balanced budget for 2026-27. We then received the final settlement on the 20th of January, and this did include additional funding as expected following the budget announcement on the 9th of December. And our allocation was an uplift of 4.1% on our general grant, which was an increase from the 2.3% at provisional stage. And in cash terms, that is an additional £5.2 million contribution to our budget position. However, that amount will not be sufficient to meet the previously reported gap of 9.5, and also the compound impact of increasing service demand in areas such as social care, which obviously we'll cover this afternoon, and education and additional learning needs. Therefore, to address this, portfolios have been revisiting their cost base with a view to identifying potential cost reductions, and those relevant to this portfolio are included within the papers. And the paper also updates on any other adjustments to the previously reported position in December. So perhaps at that point, I'll hand over to the Chief Officer just to run through the key parts of the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. So, as a starting point in the report, there are identified 2 cost savings that we're putting forward for consideration. I would say the first one is a relatively straightforward. We contribute to a number of partnerships. One of those partnerships is the Regional Collaboration Group. Over the last few years, that collaboration group has managed to achieve some balances. So that's predominantly when people leave post and there's a gap in filling that post, that quite quickly, if there's turnover, then some reserves build. So what we are proposing is next financial year that we contribute £50,000 each year, and that we use the reserve not to contribute next year. So that would be a saving because that's in our budget line, but also that there is enough money in there because Flintshire, because of our population size, we're one of the biggest contributors, but it also means that we're able to withdraw a bigger proportion of the reserves aligned to our proportion of what we've put in. So that's why that is given a risk assessment of green, because the money's there. We're confident that we would be able to achieve that. The second piece of work, which I can't fully articulate to you yet around what it will look like, but there is a need, I would say, and an opportunity for us to review our portfolio structure It's a structure that's been in place for a number of years and has served us well. However, things are changing. I think what we do know is this year and in the coming year, we've got an ageing workforce profile. A number of people have identified and shared with us that they will be intending to retire. So that means that we need to rethink what those services look like, but also an opportunity to think about and really challenge ourselves how we might be able to bring some services together, how we might be able to change some of those functions, and really looking at what the CIW inspection told us from Children's Services in July, but also what it will tell us in March, because reliance on agency workforce is an absolute theme in the children's one, and I expect it will be in the adults. So I need to be really clear that the focus of that review is about how we strengthen our multi-agency working, how we embed our practice models. We brought a report on collaborative communications, how we support consistent compliance with procedures and timescales. Again, CIW highlighted that we needed to improve consistency with the All Wales safeguarding procedures. But it's very much for me about practice and how we support practice, and some of that is about bringing some of those functions together. We need to involve our workforce in that. So I'm not going into this with a predetermined, this is what the structure looks like. I have some views as chief officer around that, but what I need to do is talk to my workforce and work out what will serve us best. Within that, I would hope through those processes, we are able to achieve a saving of 100,000. The reason I'm coding that as amber is these processes do take time. It will not be implemented on the 1st of April. What we all need to recognise is we need to go through due process, get the right people, the right service in the right place. As we do that, there will be some opportunities as people finish, and we will look to give that money up as part of the 100,000. So I'm confident we can deliver it. I'm not confident it will be exactly 100,000 for those reasons, but it's something that I think that we can move forward as a portfolio with, and that's why it's been included as an efficiency. And as I said, we will be looking at, even with the structure, where we could have offset some of that 100,000 with vacancies as they occur during the year naturally. If I go to the second element, so table 2, I think this is, there's been a significant piece of work that underpins this section. What we are really clear, members will know that this financial year, we are projected to be £7 million overspent for this portfolio. My assessment is because of the cost of care and the level of demand that we have, whilst we have an action plan that we've been working on to try and ameliorate some of those cost pressures, the reality is that demand will still be there. Dare I say it will be increased on the 1st of April, and I think it would be wholly inappropriate for me to come and say to you that we would be able to enter next year with a balanced budget without recognising the financial situation we are in and the predictions that we have for next financial year. So if I just explain that what sits behind that request, firstly, I would say what I'm about to say in terms of the drivers, this is true in Flintshire, this is true in North Wales, this is true in Wales, this is true of the whole of the UK. Social care is a system that's under significant demand pressure and financial pressure. And the themes for Flintshire, but they're not unique to Flintshire, I would say fall into 5 categories. The first is the cost of care. The care is going up. We do allow for inflationary pressures and have done for a number of years. However, alongside the increased cost of care, we are getting more people needing more care. So what is happening is the inflationary uplifts support the people that are in the pot already, but each year more people join that pot. and it's getting to the point that that is not sustainable without putting more money in the pot to meet the costs aligned to those additional people. So we have care costs going up significantly. What we're also finding is what we call third-party top-up fees, our contribution. And if I summarise this really simply, a top-up fee is where there's a genuine affordability issue and a gap between what we would pay a care home, what the care home charge, and what a family can realistically and fairly afford. And more, we've been in a cost of living crisis. What we're seeing is people can genuinely cannot afford that top up, and increasingly that is falling to the local authority, and that is adding a cost pressure to us. Demand. Do you want to go? No. Yeah, okay. Demand is the second area. We've got specific hotspots for increased demand following hospital admission, care home placements, and community living. What our analysis shows is that between 2023 and 25-26, where we are now, there's been a 22% increase in the number of people needing care home placements, older people needing care home placements. So to put that into numeric, that's in 22-23, the authority was supporting 611 people. That's now increased to 745 people. And that's all based on assessed need and people needing to be in care homes. So demand is significantly growing year on year, and I'll come on to demographic profile and what that means for Flintshire. But the third area that we've talked about previously is workforce pressures. You know, I have to be upfront. We have an over-reliance on agency staff that costs us money. We're doing a lot of work to try and reduce our agency costs, but we will still have hefty agency bills, my assessment, and hopefully it will taper, but for the next 3 years, because we're going to hear about grow your own. We need to invest in the workforce, and that takes time. So an assumption that we can just sort out or get rid of all the agency costs next year, we need to be realistic. There will be reducing numbers, but there will be agency staff still with us. And at the moment that exceeds our budget, and that will go into budget pressure next year unless we make some additional allocations. The fourth one, we can't hide away from the fact that some of our partnership approaches, some of the strains on the NHS do have cost consequences for the local authority. So again, to be specific, a lot of our residents find that there's delayed access to ND, neurodevelopment assessments, so things like ADHD, autism. For children, young people, there can be 3-4 year waiting lists. What we're seeing is increasingly families coming in while they're on that waiting list, asking for support from social care. I would also contend from schools as well. So we're seeing that increase. We are seeing, and we've done a lot of analysis, and we're doing work around continuing healthcare. Again, over the last few years, the reality is the cost of care for CHC it might be increasing in monetary terms, but when you look at demand and the costs we're paying for care, it's not keeping at pace. So in real terms, CHC, continuing healthcare contributions, and the number of cases in dispute and the number of cases where we simply cannot bring a resolution in spite of all efforts, means that there are cost implications for social services that I cannot shy away from. And the last one that's really driving this is demographic growth pressures. We have it is really positive. I don't want to badge this as, a challenge. It's great news. We've got more people becoming older in Flintshire. Being older people, we want to support them to have good, high quality lives that are independent, but we are having to support more and more people. And that trajectory has started, but will continue to grow with a significant pace. So by 2034, we will see a 20% increase in the number of people aged 65 in Flintshire, just over 41% increase in the number of people who are 85 and older. And why 85 and over is really significant is if we look at our referrals, if we look at the people that have a high precedent of kind of needing care, it's the over 85s. And there will be a 41% increase. And that drives the need for more domiciliary care, the need for more residential care. So things are only going to go in one trajectory. And what we've been able to do is looking at Office of National Statistics is in 26-27, there will be 707 people becoming over the age of 80. So next year, the year after, another 579. Unfortunately, what we also know is aligned to an ageing population, we get increased prevalence and risks around dementia. So we are predicting over the next 2 years, a significant increase in number of people that will need supporting with dementia. So that is why when we've looked across all of those areas, what we're having to fund now, we'd initially done some work earlier in the year around additional demand. We've done the work around what can we implement through the in-year savings action plan. What is our forecast next year? And my recommendation, and what I've spoken to Gary as the Section 151 officer, is that my assessment is that £7 million that we're currently overspent, we need to make an allocation in our budget going into next year. Otherwise, we'll be on the back foot. If you pressed me, my concern is that almost keeps us standing still. What we know is that there is more demand going to be coming our way. So this isn't an allocation that will sort things for all years. What we are doing and what the paper reflects is that we are looking at how we, through our practice, how we do support more people to be independent, how we support people through early intervention and prevention, how we stop the need for support escalating. So we will be absolutely continuing to focus on that, to do the work around that, to make sure that we can do that dual outcome of giving people the best life, best opportunity to be independent and being financially not reliant on the local authority. What I haven't done, and I think it's right, and actually when I read the legislation, I don't think it's permissible, I've not set any efficiency targets for that work. And the reason being is that legislation is quite clear. There's national eligibility criteria. If people are eligible for a service, they're eligible for a service. And we have to be individual and outcome focused. So it needs to be focused on the individual person. I think it would be wrong, and as I said, I think it's not permissible for us to say, and through this work, we'll deliver another £1 million. What we will do is ensure that we really support people to live independent, to be able to draw on their own family and community resources. And we'll see what the financial consequence will flow from that. So, want to be transparent. We've then got out of county budget. Shall I pause there for questions, Chair?
I've got Councillor Mackey first.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, I'm not sure we can cover everything I've got noted, but I'll give it a go. Right, so if we look at 107, I think we've got up to 107, haven't we? We were talking about that. So I just want to make sure I've got this right. Originally, there was a budget pressure of 3.5 million. You feel at the moment, or the department feels, that the 7 million overspend in the current year is likely to continue into the coming year. Therefore, you have to increase that original pressure. You have effectively to double it. But I just wanted to make sure I really had understood that and I wasn't getting it wrong. So if I look at what you said already, I mean, I think clearly I was concerned by the fact that the regional, whatever it was, has got a sizable balance of money that they have been, well, given presumably or demanded or whatever the rules are in their situation, that they have had anyway, and they haven't been spending it. It's been going into their reserves. And obviously I'm very, very concerned about that, because in the current financial situation, which is nothing to do with Flintshire, it's nothing to do with governments or anything else, it's purely a situation that's resulted from UK Limited, which is simply not performing in a way that we expect. I think we've seen figures today to say that last year our GDP grew by 0.1%. Well, that isn't good enough. We can't work with that. So it's not it's a problem for everybody. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to have to take pain over this, financial pain, because we're going to have cuts. So I'm pleased you've been able to find that money. I'm pleased you've been able to get that agreement. But I do appreciate also that coming a couple of years from now, we're going to have to put that money back as a pressure. It's not a win-win for any length of time. So, and I hope you'll understand what I'm saying when I say I'm disappointed that situation arose anyway. So if I look at 107, yeah, I've covered that. It is an additional 3.5 million. Right, I'll leave my other questions until you've gone on a bit further.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. At one point I noted you were asking for my confirmation around the 3.5 million being additional, making it 7 million. And I was nodding, and then I thought, people on the screen can't see me nod, can they? So just wanted to verbally confirm for those people who couldn't see that is the case. In terms of the collaboration group, I must be clear, that is us. It's the 6 authorities coming together. It's not some quango. That collaboration unit, they have to have a level of reserve. So if there were redundancies and things like that, it's over the years, especially when we went through COVID, that's built up to a point now, and it's absolutely fine. We can say we're having our money back, and that's what we're doing. You know, when you kind of go, it's raining, we need that back. Well, it's not raining, there's a flood. So that is that. But you're absolutely right. It's a one-off. Can't do that again. Next year it will be, I've got to find 50,000, you know, because we're funding that out of my budget. So if I carry on then, if that's okay. Sorry, Councillor.
Go on. So when you were talking about paragraph 1.07, I completely understand that is a need to increase the budget, the 7 million, for all those reasons that you said. Demand, cost, cost of the service, and an over-reliance on agency. So it just made me slightly concerned with the previous paragraph with the structural review. If we're trying to reduce our reliance on agency staff, but yet we might be restructuring and losing staff, is that really, is that a good way to go?
So one of the things that we know, and Sarah Grant might want to come up, is that when we advertise for, say, in children's services assistant posts, or in adults community assessment officers, we get really good responses. And in other authorities, what they have done is looked at, actually, what functions do you really need a social worker to do? And if you had almost a pod where you've got social workers and social children's services assistants, they can work together as long as the duties are formally aligned. So you might not need to have, for example, 3 agency social workers being paid at very high rates. You might have 1 permanent social worker with CSAs, children's services assistants. So it's not getting rid of staff, but actually what we're able to do is employ where there are people who want the jobs and have got the skills and competencies. So we might have to change the structure. And then what we need to do is then you grow those to become social workers and support them. But it's a different way of cutting it and actually going to go in. We've got this issue with agency. Actually, how can we do things differently? That isn't about going, let's reduce our workforce. It's recognising that there isn't a cavalry of qualified social workers that are coming over the hill and they're just going to be employed over the next 2-3 years. We've got to do something fundamentally different in a way that meets needs, is sustainable. But I suppose that's where, am I articulating what we're trying to do? We're thinking very differently. It's not about, we're just going to cut the structure. Actually, we're going to question what are the needs? What do we need? What's the skill set? How do we use our permanent staff? How could we bolster our permanent staff and support them? And as a consequence, reduce on some of those things that might be more transient for us. Sarah, did you want to come in, or have I just said what you were going to say?
No, I think you said it really well. But one thing I will add is the point there about the CSAs. I think what we do know is, as what Craig has said, is that we do have a lot of interest in those posts, and we recruited recently to a number of CSA posts. Those individuals have got really good professional backgrounds, sort of ex-teachers, you know, those kinds of professions. That takes time, and I think that's the point really. So whilst we have to continue with business as usual and our statutory responsibilities and functions, we also have to then be thinking about where we're going in the future. What we know is, and Jane will be able to talk about this much better than me, and I think we'll cover it a bit later on, is that when we grow our own, we retain them. So that's something that we've got to celebrate and we've got to hold on to. So it's how we manage everything now, but actually with our vision for the future. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Thew next.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Just 2 points really. I think it's time Flintshire didn't pay extra. You know, when the Barnet formula was implemented like 25 years ago or whatever, we shouldn't be impacted upon. We pay our dues. Well, we don't pay our dues. We don't receive the income. So why is it that we have to pay more for certain things than other counties? We've already sort of seen a reduction in what we get. So for the regional collaboration group, I think we should just pay equal amounts rather than us pay, you know, additional amount. I think it's obscene. We've been penalised already, and that goes across the board for everything else we pay, and you know, an increased price to receive. And the other item is para 1.08. I know the chief officer was saying that he doesn't want to impact on the services provided, but in view of what's happening, do you see domiciliary visits, for example, being reduced? Say, people still getting a service, but at a reduced rate? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Okay, 2 things there. The first one around funding allocations, grant funding allocations, it is quite complex. So where we have regional services, there are long-standing arrangements for formulas to identify how much each local authority contributes. So I think one of the things, because we have a larger population, so if you compare Anglesey to ourselves, that service will support more Flintshire people than it would support Anglesey. So it's almost, you get a return on your investment because actually you need more support for more people, but also flowing out. So if I think of this collaboration unit, they manage for the region what's called the RIF funding, the Regional Integrated Funding. And I could imagine that if we said, right, this unit serves 6 of us, we're all going to split the cost of running it by 6. They get a grant that they manage for that through that Regional Integration Fund. We wouldn't be able to have our cake and eat it. So then what people would say is the grant funding is split between 6, whereas at the moment, from the grant funding, we get a bigger portion of that pot because we've got more. So what's going in is also coming out. And if we restricted it based on equal splits, my assessment is that Flintshire would end up as a net loser through that approach. So it's understanding the whole system, because on the front of it, it sounds kind of like, well, the 6 of us, 6 was putting in the pot, split it by 6. But then I wouldn't want what that's delivered and what grant that generates for us. I'd want that to be equitable to our population and our population needs. The second one, what was the second element?
Domiciliary care, yes.
So we can't, and we don't have blanket policies that are, let's just reduce domiciliary care from everyone. Domiciliary care is based on individual needs, and we constantly review people's needs and reassess people's needs. Some people's needs go up, some go down. So depending on their individual circumstances, packages of care are changed. There are levels that are permissible for a social worker or a reviewing officer to make a change. There are levels that if they want to go beyond that, they need to go through a panel process where there's oversight to ensure that's fair, equitable and aligned to need. The reality is what we're seeing is more people's needs going up rather than the other way.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask a question. And Craig, you have my sympathy. You have a very difficult job in front of you. What you've been saying now is what's been said for years and years, but we're in a different financial climate, aren't we, to what we've ever been. So please don't think I'm being rude when I ask this question. So how will, because you touched on it, the eligibility criteria, how will that change? And do we know at this time how many people it will affect? I think you've just touched on it now, haven't you, with Councillor Thew, where she'd asked about care packages. So I was just interested to know that, because I know over the years the eligibility criteria have had to change, but I was wondering how it would change. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. So I need to be really clear. Under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, which came in, that has brought national criteria. That national criteria is prescribed. It will not change. It's the law. That's what our practitioners have to follow. So there will be no change. I just want to say there's no change to our national eligibility criteria. What that criteria in the Social Services Wellbeing Act says very clearly is that when we assess someone, we need to understand what matters to them and what outcomes they want to achieve. We then need to understand what resources they have as an individual, what resources they have as a family, what community resources can be accessed, and we need to provide them with information, advice and assistance, and where needed, support to access those own individual community family arrangements. If the local authority, and I'm trying to remember the language in the Act, is the only one that can only meet those eligible identified needs, then that's when we would move into developing a care and support plan and either providing or purchasing and commissioning those. So that is the national eligibility criteria summarised. What I would say is that we are having a greater focus around skilling our practitioners up and having the time to have really good quality what matters conversations. Under the Act, it talks about really focusing on people's strengths, enabling a proportionate approach to risk, so that we're looking and spending time to make sure that before the local authority put services in, we've really satisfied that we have explored and people have used or cannot access those kind of early help, early intervention, individual community resources. So, Councillor Ellis, it's not about changing the criteria, it's about refocusing our practice to look at that element. And that's why I haven't set any targets, because actually we have to take an individualised approach. And if someone doesn't have the individual, the family or community resources, then actually that falls to us and the eligibility criteria remains. So it's only when we've done that individual work is that we understand actually what the need is and what the potential cost is individually, and then aggregated up for the population.
Greg, I don't know if you wanted to, I've got nobody else indicated. Do you want to carry on for the out-of-county placements part of the report?
Yeah, this committee is very well cited on out-of-county placements. Out-of-county placements is the joint pooled budget across social services and education, and that funds a range of needs for children and young people. That includes day places in specialist schools, all the way through to residential care and residential education for children and young people. It's a very costly service. What this authority has done and continues to do is invest in building our own infrastructure around in-house fostering and in-house residential care. There's a report coming to next Scrutiny that gives an annual overview of the work that's happened, what we've achieved and where we're going, and seeking your agreement and approval for our approach. But at the moment, we are twin tracking. So because we don't have enough foster carers, because we don't yet have enough in-house residential, we are having to develop and pay for the development and build that infrastructure while supporting young people in the independent sector. The landscape, as members know, is changing significantly with the not-for-profit legislation that's come into Wales. We've done work, we and the finance team work with operational teams because we know the age profile of all our young people in residential and fostering, and what they've been able to identify is now, who do we know that through age will be leaving these placements next year, and therefore those costs will stop? Who do we know, because we've reported to you previously about a project called Reconnect, and that's working to look at how we safely and appropriately support young people to step down from residential care where that's the best outcome, to go and live with foster carers. So we've looked at that. So, but the reality is that that is an overspent service, an over budget, spent over budget. We had initially put in 2.5 million, but we are now, having done that piece of work, recommending and asking for an additional 2 million for out of county. However, what we do know, it's very volatile, and 500,000 could be, unfortunately, one placement. So we are, having done the work, recommending bringing it to 2 million. But again, I just need to put some caveats around that about how volatile it is. But you have to go with something, and you have to use some form of modelling. And so that is the figure that we've come out, having used the modelling that we've used in previous years. And then again, it's subject to individual need.
Councillor Mackie, did you want to come back? So I'm conscious you said you might have some more questions.
Thank you, Chair. So on out of county placements, you are a £500,000 reduction, or in other words, saving in what you originally proposed. So, so coupled with the previous additional charge of 3.5, and we've got £200,000 in the earlier part of the report. We're still negative. I think it's still good. We're still saying that the budget needs to go up more than we're saving. And that is despite the fact that in paragraph 106, I'm sorry, things aren't too easy with the changes of IT at the moment. 105, I think departments were asked for a further 3% cut. And unfortunately, social services is one of our big spending departments, and 3% coming off social services would have been quite a considerable sum if you look at other smaller departments where a 3% saving would be somewhat less. I mean, all members here are shortly going to have to be in a budget setting meeting when we are going to probably have to take some very painful decisions. And of course, it would make those decisions less painful if we could find savings before we get to that stage. And if as members, we don't have to hopefully find the savings ourselves. So can you tell me how your work for this 3% has gone? I mean, you've explained it to some extent. I appreciate that. And is it really not possible? That's really what I'm asking, I think, because I think we have to know here that we have tested the department. We have asked the difficult questions, and this is clearly a difficult question, and we have, well, had a reply. Thank you.
Absolutely. So two things, and I'm just going to have to check with Gary because I have so many figures in my head. I want to give you the right one. So I know social services is a big budget. The reality is the majority of our budget goes on care fees, firstly, and then workforce. So we could never achieve 3% on the whole of budget of social services. So my recollection, this is where I'll just ask Gary to correct me, when we looked at what was influenceable potential, I think the 3% came to 600,000, was it, Gary? It was something like that. We haven't achieved it. So someone has just said it's 600,000. So that is right. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that actually 3% is millions, and because we haven't got the 3%, we're losing out on the millions. The 3% was predicated on what I was asked, quite rightly, as every portfolio is, it should be 3%, and for me that was 600,000. And I totally agree, we shouldn't have protection. We are accountable for delivering just as everyone else is. The work that we did, so the process that we did, so over the summer, because it started a few months, pretty soon we'll be starting to talk about next year's budget. So we had a finance meeting where myself, SLT, so that's Jane, Sarah, Karen, myself, and then all the managers that we manage had a workshop in this very room where we went through an Excel spreadsheet with every single line of the budget. And what we did is we looked at all of those lines and we had conversations, and we looked at, actually, could we achieve anything? And that's what's garnished the 200,000. And that's kind of, for us, looking at every bit of our budget and what could we do different. So whilst it's not 3%, we've got 200,000 of the 600,000. That's a shortfall. The only thing, and I need to be really clear, so if making difficult decisions, which, you know, Councillor Ellis says she doesn't envy me, I don't envy you. You're the ones who have to make decisions and be accountable for the budget to residents. The consequence to reduce that for would be cutting care. So the very thing that you've talked about around things like domiciliary care and cutting back and kind of going, we're going to shave off. That's not legal. So I would be advocating against that. But care would be the area, and workforce. So you could challenge me around actually looking at our workforce. The difficulty is we're having more and more people needing support, and staff are being stretched even more to deliver that. And that's not an ideal situation. So it's been a very inclusive approach, Councillor Mackey. It's not just me, it's not just the senior management team going, what could we do? We've got all our staff. In fact, is it the 28th of Feb? We've got another workshop with all our workforce. So that's going down the next level to team managers to talk about where we've landed this year, actually the population and the challenges of growth and what we're going to do and the structure, all of those things we're starting. It feels like budget is a continual cycle, but I'd want to give you assurance it's been very comprehensive reviews, discussions throughout that process. It hasn't just been, well, it's social care, we're protected, we can't. We know that we are accountable and have to look at everything and deliver what we can.
Thank you for allowing me to come back again. I just think the awkward questions have to be asked. And I think the explanation that we've received, I find extremely reassuring. I wasn't aware of the steps that had been taken before I just heard now. It's difficult sitting here. It really is difficult. And I'm actually a huge believer, as our chair will know, in going through budgets line by line. Because he and I do it somewhere else. and it's something that I set up and we've done for some years. And I think it really is a very, very strong way of checking your budget, because you've got people there who are absolutely completely familiar with the particular line you're looking at. And you've got people who just have an idea of it on the outside of that. And then you've got other people who are looking at it with different views again. When you've got your whole department there, you are giving it a very, very thorough examination. I can't think of a more thorough way of doing it, to be quite honest with you. So I've got to say that having heard that, I am reassured that the department has taken steps, the best steps it can. That's all I can say. It's the department has taken the best steps it can to find the necessary savings. And I think if we as a committee feel that that is the case, then we can go to the county council and we can honestly say that we have challenged the department. We have heard the way that they are working and the steps that they've taken. And I believe that we can say that we do not believe that there are any further cuts that the department could make. So that is my personal view, and perhaps, Chair, you might want to find out if that is the view of the committee generally. I don't know. But thank you very much.
I'll bring Christine and then Gary.
Thank you, Dave. We know you're always thorough. It's Councillor Jones here speaking, by the way, if you can't see me. Just want to endorse what Craig's just said. This has been going on for months. Craig has challenged every member of his team, right the way across, adults, children's, mental health, everybody has had the challenge. They've had the glove thrown down and said, you find any savings, any efficiencies you can, and I want them bringing back to me. And fair dues, every member of the team have done that. They've been in this room, they've been out to different areas, little away days, so they're they can focus, you know, say they've been over to Northup College, had the day there, totally focused on just trying to find efficiencies. And this is what they've come back with, because they care about the services. They genuinely care, each and every one of them, and they could only put forward what they deem safe, and safe for every community and every member of that community, every resident, everybody we look after. Some things we can't cut back on, obviously, you know, care, residential care fees, etc. But everything else has been totally and thoroughly looked at. And it's been heartbreaking for some of the, well, most of the officers, to be honest, every officer, because they're precious about the services, they're precious about the people that they care for and provide services for. So it's been a really difficult task. And this is what's been brought back to bring in front of you today. So thank you, Dave, for, you know, asking these questions. But yes, they've been thoroughly looked at.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Sir. Just to make sure we've got absolute clarity on the figures. The figures within the report this afternoon are purely changes that have been made since the December report. Members may recall that a number of pressures were brought to this committee prior to December, and there's a number of pressures included at that stage. So the final report, when it comes through, will have significantly higher uplift than is included in the report. I think for the current financial year, there's a 12% uplift on the social care budget. 26-27 could potentially be even higher, which again just reflects the challenges that's faced by the portfolio, really. Just wanted to make that clear, Chair.
Thanks, Gary. I don't have anybody else. Councillor Johnson.
Just again, I appreciate your comments, Councillor Mackie. It's just one of the points you went and made there was about this is a procedure which has to go on throughout the whole of the year. And I think it's very important that it is seen to be that. This, what we're talking about now, is looking at next year in a sense that looking at how we go forward to it. But to get where we are now and what we're looking at next year, there's obviously been things a bit. We're dealing with a situation which has been growing over the past year. And I mean, this committee will be aware that there's the action plan that was set up in the financial procedure rules for social services, and we've gone through that, so you have an idea of how that's been coming out. So nothing we've talked about today should really be a surprise to anybody. This morning when we went to Cross, I've got my big A3 copy of it here. For the budget monitoring, it's a very, very detailed explanation about where's a variance of more than 50k, and it's talking, for example, I've just gone through here, that when you're looking at, let's have a quick find one here. This one here, older people, localities, there's explanations of why there's an overspend or an underspend or whatever, which I think, in a sense, as a committee, definitely doesn't help you to understand the challenges which you're faced with this year. And when you were saying about how difficult it is, my understanding about what a scrutiny committee goes and does well is very much the same as Craig was saying, but from a different direction. You are there looking at the information that you've got. I think this council is exemplary in the amount of information it goes and gives on the spending within different departments, so that when you come into these decisions, as this discussion is quite clearly illustrated, it's not something that anybody's thought, wow, where's that going to come from? So I think your questions are very, very justifiable and very clear. If there's anything on that document there, I myself as finance or Craig, whatever, the members, if you're not aware of it, to have a look at it when it comes to Cross, and we can work through that and have further discussions with you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We'll move to the recommendation, which is to review and comment on the social services portfolio's options to reduce budgets. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Thew, seconder. Councillor Lister. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is social care workforce. Begins on page 27. Councillor Lister.
Just to say, Councillor Coggins-Goon's struggling to get back into Zoom. You know. Okay.
So agenda item 7, I'll pass over to Jane Davis for this one.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd, pnawn da, Cynghorwyr, braf iawn i'ch gweld chi. Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So, as it is Jane Davis, for those of you who don't recognise my dulcet tones. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this report regarding workforce. It's already been referenced a couple of times in what Craig and Sarah have both said, so fits very nicely with the conversations that we've been having this afternoon. So the report outlines the work that we have been doing regarding recruitment, particularly for social workers and occupational therapists, and particularly concentrating on the work done to grow our own staff in these particular areas. It's very much an apprenticeship style route and ability to be able to take those excellent workers that we have throughout the service, and where they share their desire or have the ability to develop further within the service, to provide that opportunity for them to do so with our support. As you'll see from the report, the Grow Your Own for social workers in particular, and for our OT colleagues, has been something that we've done for many years within Flintshire Social Services. It's very much a pathway of development that has been seen by many as an opportunity, and I was hoping today to have one of my colleagues, well, two of my colleagues with me, Claire Mayers and Wes Owen, who were going to attend to share with you the story of their particular workforce journey. Unfortunately, one has been detained with operational work and the other is poorly today, and not able. So you're stuck with me, I'm afraid, who can't give you quite the same story. But nevertheless, I think you'll appreciate the importance of having a scheme such as these to be able to support us, particularly during these challenging times of recruitment and retention. So the scheme very much concentrates on developing our own staff. It's very much a central pillar of the work that we do within the authority, and buddies up to many other apprenticeship style schemes that we have across the authority in different portfolio areas. As you will recognise, there is a demand for social workers. Craig has alluded to the role, an important role that agency workers play in the delivery of our services, but having our own staff delivering that is something that we aspire to for lots of reasons. It's very much a reflection of our long-term commitment to our staff, and the importance of having that trust, goodwill, and ability to develop and maintain staff throughout a process that not only may take them into the world of social work or occupational therapy, but they may then move them forward through into management and leadership. And the two individuals I speak of are both managers in their own right within the disability service that we have at the moment. The scheme that we have for social workers is currently run through the Open University. So staff will continue to receive their substantive salary and will be expected to deliver their work as they would normally, with assistance from time set aside to undertake the course qualifications. As you know, with the social work degree, there is an expectation that an individual is placed on placement. It's an integral part of the degree, and so individuals are supported to go on placements throughout the social services family, that's within statutory services and outside of statutory services, because there is much richness to be had from having a placement in maybe a charitable organisation, a third sector organisation, or one of our other partners. What we have invested in as well is the work of a social work practice educator. So as a student out on placement, you will of course have your mentor, your person with you who is guiding you through the day-to-day practical aspects of the role, supporting you with questions that you have. But as part of your academic study, you also need to be able to translate the work that you're doing practically into your academic studies, so that you can take the information that you've had from your university course and apply it within the work setting, but equally be able to take that knowledge that you've gained from the placement and apply that back into your academic studies. And to aid you to do that, we have practice educators who are statutory part of the social work degree. What we found was that practice educator time is precious because these are not the only students that we host. So we don't only have our Grow Your Own students, we have other students, which I'll come to in a moment. And so as part of a grant fund, we invested in employing a dedicated social work practice educator whose work it is to work with the Grow Your Own students and to support them. I did mention that actually having Grow Your Own students is actually really encouraging from a retention point of view. If you're a support worker, a children's services assistant, a community care officer within adult services, you know Flintshire. You've worked here before, you understand how we operate, you know the people of Flintshire, and you have invested yourself in Flintshire. And so as part of that, when Flintshire invests in these individuals, what we see is a much higher retention rate going forward. Staff tend to grow within the service as opposed to leaving the service. And so I had prepared for Craig and didn't include it within the report, and apologies for that omission, that over the last, well, since 2016, so over the last sort of 10 years, of those trainees who we've had 46 trainees under this scheme. 35 of those, so 76%, have remained within the authority and either stayed in the current post or moved through those posts, as I say, moving into different management roles within the service. And so that is testament to obviously the expertise and skills those staff members have, but also that dedication to the service that they're delivering within the county of Flintshire. You can see the numbers as presented to you of how many students we have within the Grow Your Own scheme under section 1.03 of the report. And also the report makes reference to the maybe more traditional route of social work, which is to do a full-time degree. Open University is not for everybody. It is distance learning and tutor support, and we have amazing technology now, don't we? That means that that support can be available through Teams or other virtual networks. However, it's not for everyone. And so we work very closely in partnership with colleagues at Wrexham University. I sit on the strategic board for the social work and occupational therapy degree, and alongside my colleagues from Wrexham Council and from Denbighshire Council, we host between us the social work students who come through the university. And as part of that process, that also gives us an opportunity to meet those brand new social work students who are coming through the sausage machine. So these are not our employees, these are students coming through afresh, interested in social work and undertaking a social work degree. And over a period of a couple of years, they again are hosted with us, either in statutory services or non-statutory services. And we get an opportunity to work with them and they get an opportunity to work with us. The retention rate is not quite as high for those students. However, it is a great opportunity, and it's really important that we have lots of strands to be able to bring on these new qualified social workers to support us. The other route that we're currently exploring with the university is they are in the initial stages of investigating a master's qualification on a part-time basis. So that would be an opportunity for us to be able to have students who may have had a first degree in a different subject area, maybe criminology, psychology, Chinese pottery, who knows, but that have got an interest in social work and who may want to convert. You will know that you need a social work degree to practice. So it is a protected characteristic of the employment of social work. So, so those individuals would need to do a 2-year part-time master's degree. We're working with the university at the moment to explore how that might be able to support our own staff. So it's very early and tentative conversations currently. Occupational therapy, equally a huge part of the service, incredibly important part of the service, and again the requirement for a dedicated degree in order to be able to practice as an occupational therapist. As you'll see in 1.04, Occupational therapy is the degree is run through the Health Education and Improvement Wales funding scheme, and so different to a social work degree, funding is available for students, and in Wales we're very lucky to have that. However, over the years that funding had been very much for health students, so individuals going into health professions, not into social care, occupational therapy roles. And through some careful work and negotiations across the region, Craig made reference to the contributions that we make to that regional collaboration team, and that was through the regional collaboration team that we've been able to have those meaningful conversations with HEIW and agreed some annual funding to secure 1 degree placement for every one of the 6 local authorities in North Wales, and we take advantage of that going forward, which is really helpful. Just taking you further through the report, we've got obviously recruitment initiatives, and we've spoken about these at this meeting previously. Lots of work going on to promote the careers that sit within social services by using modern methods of communication as well as the more traditional fairs and other methods, but social media, reaching out to communities and having conversations. I contact every new starter who joins the authority within social services to welcome them to the team and to thank them for choosing Flintshire, but also to provide them with some information. And one of the things I provide them with is a video of staff who already work here and how they feel about working in the local authority and particularly in social services, and the benefits that that brings to them. And by doing that, I also reach out to them to understand why it is they picked Flintshire, why did they apply, what has attracted them, and that helps us with some rich information about our recruitment initiatives and campaigns. We've changed our website to make it a landing page where you can go straight to social work and occupational therapy recruitment, and we've done some engaging work with Creed Recruitment over the years to develop some really interesting videos and shorts and reels, and the kids would be impressed with me talking like this. They would think I knew what I was talking about. So, but to build on that social media presence that we have. Progression, of course, is really important. It's great to have newly qualified social workers. They need to be supported. There's a very clear progression route, induction, and then a first 3 years in practice. So you get a first year as a newly qualified social worker, where you are supported very closely from the workforce development team and the team that you operate within, and then a very structured progress throughout the first 3 years in practice after that, so that you can build and develop your skills in what is no doubt a challenging area, but nevertheless very rewarding. And then we also make sure that we focus on staff wellbeing. Part of that is the conversation that Craig has already had with you about ensuring that we are engaging at all our levels of management so that everybody is cited, understands, feels part of the group, part of the decision making. Wellbeing is a lot of things, from an opportunity to talk about concerns that you might have through VIVUP or the dedicated Social Care Wales Canopy programme, or feeling in control and being able to influence the future of the organisation that you work for, and lots of steps in between. And then finally, just succession planning. This is a key piece of work that we've been working on. We were lucky to be able to have the opportunity to attend the Social Care Wales Succession Planning Hub meetings, a series of events that were run across Wales with the support of WLGA. And they've been really thought-provoking for us to look at succession planning in a different way. So some of the work that we've been doing is identifying where some of those really key roles are within our service, not necessarily highly graded roles, but really pivotal roles that without that role, things wouldn't be as good as they are, or things would be different because they weren't there. And then thinking about who occupies those roles at the moment and what their intentions are over the next 3 to 5 years, so that we can start to put plans in place to help and support both them and those who are coming up underneath them, so that we have that route of succession planning. And the other thing that we've been talking about is looking at how we skill people up. We don't believe in having an academy as such where people apply to be the next Craig MacLeod or whoever, because we feel that that can be divisive. And if you don't get in the first time, that's it, you're done. And that it doesn't seem like the values that we all hold dear. So our belief is that we offer those opportunities across the board to those and provide a toolkit to managers to help and support that. And in addition to that as well, we're looking under resource implications as to how we can get that transfer of information from the person leaving to the person coming in. And there's lots you can do, isn't there? You know, but there is no substitute for sitting alongside somebody. But that does have a resource implication. So for some of those key roles, we're looking at what that might look like and how maybe we can engineer that within the service. I've gone on for long enough. I'm going to shush. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I've got Councillor Mackie first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Thank you for the report. I'd like to look at paragraph 103. I was particularly impressed by the numbers there, as I'm sure everybody would be. I'd just like to say that this report is clearly linked to what we've already heard about the budget. It clearly has a place within the department in order to try and overcome these big problems that we have. And from that point of view, it's very, very commendable, in my opinion. So, yes, 106, hang on, I'm losing, 103, sorry, yes, I thought that was very, very good. But the reducing enrolling numbers, I was concerned about that. And I think we must ask the director to take that issue to his national meetings that I think he attends, and ask if he can somehow manage to get government, both at Welsh and UK levels, because we need to have this work has to be attractive to young people. It has to be something they want to do. We have to concentrate on the positives. We don't have to concentrate on the negatives, which national press, for obvious reasons, sometimes tends to concentrate on. And I can't think that we can do a lot locally, apart from what we can do with schools and that sort of thing. But really, I think this is a national problem, and it can only be tackled nationally. It's no good trying to do it if you haven't got that behind you. Oh, I'm sorry. This machine has got a will of its own. I'll do it from memory. It's now jumped onto page 93. You see, IT, I want you here. I really, one day you're going to see me sitting here with somebody you don't know, and it's going to be somebody from IT, and he's going to be running the IT or watching it go wrong. Seriously. Right. I can only do this from guesswork. 201. Yes, I totally agree. It's a very important that we do have handover, because I have this little window into social services through some of the things I do, and I often hear coming back that it's handover which could be better. So I'm very pleased to see that that is a priority in this report. I don't know what paragraph 4 is all about. All I've written in my notes is 4 scary. And I can't tell you what it is because it'll take me half an hour to get back to that page. Yes, risk management. Risk management. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, yes, there are so many risks. That's what I was scared about. Sorry. It really is scary, isn't it? That to have all those risks. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Coppell.
There we are. Thank you. Thanks. What I was saying, just to reflect on what Councillor Mackey's just said, as a person who was trained like this as an apprentice and sent off to university whilst working, and 2 kids and a wife at the same time, it's not an easy route. It really, really isn't. And in terms of retention, I stayed with the same company for 43 years and rose quite well up it, so to speak. But nevertheless, what a well thought out, well structured process on a multi-stranded basis in a response to what is a very challenging environment, particularly when you've got agency staff that you need to not remove, but replace with homegrown staff. And also the fact it's not just homegrown, it's every aspect. So congratulations on a response to what is an endemic problem, not just in this part of the world or this industry, but everywhere. And it's going back like to the 40 years ago. That's what people did then, the home grew people. So congratulations and well done. Thank you.
Councillor Lister.
Yes, I support all of those comments. I was looking at paragraph 105, the recruitment initiatives, and there's an awful lot of students in our Flintshire schools that study health and social care, and they also have to do Welsh back qualifications that means they need to do work experience. And I was just wondering whether there was any scope, and I realised that your staff are probably already working very, very hard and there might not be that time, but to go into schools and to share with the health and social, A-level groups what you do, what possible careers there are, and potentially offer some work experience outside of that to get them in. Yeah, that's it really. Thank you.
Chair, am I able to respond? So, yeah, no, it's a really good point. Social Care Wales have a Care Ambassadors programme, which is a national programme, and that is aimed at those who are working in social care, going out into schools, colleges and other places to be able to share their story, I suppose, and sort of entice people to come and work in a really rewarding profession that sometimes, as Councillor Mackie pointed out, doesn't always get the positive press that it maybe deserves. But interesting you say that. I'm going to the Elfed to a Welsh language skills fair in a couple of weeks, and that is part of what we deliver here is to be able to tap into some of that localness as well, to use our contacts. Many of us who work in the service, and yourselves included, will have been educated locally and still have some connections with local schools. And so it's capitalising on that. One of our OT Grow Your Own students is also attending one of the school fairs to share the light of occupational therapy is not always about health services, but is actually about social care, and what happens in the community is of equal importance. So yes, thank you. It's getting out there as well and being invited. So we're constantly pushing the door of that.
Is there an opportunity for students to undertake work experience for your service?
Yes and no, I'm going to say. So it can't be... what we find the best age group to grab those young people's attention is in that sort of year 9 and 10 land. And so that's pre-GCSEs. That's when you're starting to make your decisions about options and where you want to go. You're right, a lot of people do choose health and social care, but then go either onto health or onto childcare. And so don't necessarily come into this part of our sector. But it's an opportunity. Work experience is a great opportunity. It can be difficult because of the nature of the work that we do, vulnerabilities of the people that we work with, and the opportunities to give real life work. We used to do quite a lot of work experience in back office services that sit in my service area, but it's not as exciting as being a social worker out in the field. And don't let my staff hear me saying that out loud, but it isn't quite what we're after, and so we're finding it difficult to be able to provide that sort of coal-face work experience.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on training. It says here between 2021 and 2025, there was 27 trainers. Out of them, how many has qualified and got their degrees? And another, tagging on to that, when you do apply for social works, or when you take the trainers on, do they have to be fluent Welsh, or speak Welsh. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So all pass. We have 100% success rate on our Grow Your Own students passing their degrees, which is amazing. And, you know, credit to them, because I think, as Councillor Coppell mentioned, I did my degree this way as well. And it isn't easy to hold down a full-time job and to have a family life and all the other commitments, and to be doing this as a part-time addition. So, yeah, so we are, you know, blessed to have students who are so diligent as we get 100% pass rate. In answer to the Welsh language question, we have a desired requirement for Welsh language, but not an essential requirement for Welsh language. You know me, I'd love essential, but...
Can I just add as well, Jane did give some stats, but for that cohort, so for the last 5 years that you're referring to, Councillor Healy, of those 27 that have been supported through your Grow Your Own and qualified as social workers, 26 of the 27 still work for us.
Councillor Thew.
If I'd have known that a relative of mine was going to be one of the officers you mentioned, I should have perhaps declared personal interest. But a wonderful person, and you've given him a wonderful career. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't have anybody else indicating, so should we move to the recommendation? It's that the committee be aware of the variety of activities being undertaken to support the recruitment and retention of the social care workforce in Flintshire. Have a mover for that? Councillor Thew, seconder. Councillor Lister, all those in favour? Yeah, that's everybody. Thank you very much. We will move on to agenda item 8, which is deferred charges audit report. And I'll hand. Just for those online, we're just allowing Councillor Thew to leave the room when she's declared an interest.
Thank you, Chair. So this report sits within, again, my service area. So thank you for the opportunity again to bring this report to committee. It has been through the Governance and Audit Committee twice, but it was felt that it was appropriate to bring it to this committee for your information as well. Back in 2022-23, the internal audit programme, which is a conversation between the service and our internal audit team about areas where we feel we would like particular attention, or where we can see development, or where there's an opportunity to change process or practice. We invite audit to come and have a look at those areas, and that can support us going forward in changes that we may wish to make. And so it was an opportunity for us to reflect on the deferred payment process that we have. So deferred payments, just for clarification, relate only to care home payments. So these relate to the fees for care homes, whether they be residential or nursing homes. And this is where an individual is receiving care in a care home setting, and their estate is valued over £50,000, which is the Welsh Government cap, whereby beneath £50,000, you no longer fund your care yourself. You are supported through the local authority, who will support you with your care fees. So if an estate is over £50,000, in many cases, that means that the property is part of the estate, and the property is forming part of that value. And when an individual does go into a care home setting, this can sometimes be quite quick or unplanned, maybe following a hospital admission or whatever, or maybe a deterioration in somebody's health. And so the finances are not there at the time, and so need to be structured over a period of time to support that individual in their setting. So as part of the work that we do within the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, so this is a statutory requirement of the authority, we can offer deferred payments whereby a person will say, well, I will use the value of my property is a good example to support with paying my care fees, but at the moment my property is still standing and I haven't sold it, and so therefore I need a period of time, or my family need a period of time to be able to sell the property and to realise the assets from it and then continue to pay my care fees. So in that interim, we have what's known as a deferred payment scheme, which assists with individuals. We raised this as an area we wish to look at through the support of our internal audit colleagues. After the audit, there were 8 actions which were identified, and as you'll see from the report, 5 of those were red and 3 of those were amber. As a result of that, we, under the financial assessments and charging team, set up a task and finish group quite quickly to look at the recommendations that had come from the audit and to support us in the way forward to ensure that our monitoring in particular and our oversight of those deferred payments and the processes attached to them were clear and robust, particularly for management oversight. You'll be aware we've talked a lot about IT systems and digital and all those sorts of things. Currently, we still operate on the Paris system, and information is contained within there about care and support needs and some information regarding finance. We have made some significant changes to the workflow within Paris and the reporting functions. That means that we can now gather the information regarding deferred payments together into that space, so that I, as the senior manager, am able then to analyse that information and cross-match it to other information sources. Those other sources are our contract system, and that was introduced just over 12 months ago now. That has enabled us to be able to provide statements to families frequently that are auto-generated. Previously, those statements had to be generated manually. And so that keeps families and individuals abreast of the outstanding debt as it accrues, so that they have an understanding of when the property or asset sells, how much is to be repaid through to the local authority for that interim period of time. And we also interface with Masterpiece and our debt management team corporately. So as you can see, there's lots of connections. So part of the task and finish group's actions was to make sure that as the senior manager within the service, and also my team managers and managers beneath, we all have an understanding of where we are at the time, what debts we have outstanding, what progress has been taken to ensure those debts are repaid, and we can RAG rate those as well, so that we understand better where the risks lie, which is an important part of this work. And so that was very useful as an exercise for us and helped us to sort of drill down into the detail. What it's also done as well is, whilst we have RAG rated the outstanding deferred payment list, if you like, what we have also done as part of that is actually continue to monitor each one, because at the moment we just want to have that assurity. So in time, when a deferred payment is ragged as green, then we won't be monitoring that only once every 12 months unless circumstances change. But for the time being, we're feeling that we like to monitor every month, which is what the current process is for us. Also, as part of the process and an outcome of the audit was to ensure that some of the legal instruments available to us are correctly used, are the right ones for the circumstances. This is a very complex field. There are lots of cases where it is not a straightforward property owned by the individual who is then in receipt of care. There are lots of complexities attached to it. Things like trust funds and people with equity release over properties and other more complex fields. And so to support us, we did initially go to our in-house legal services, but as you know, those services are excellent at supporting us with safeguarding, with deprivation of liberty, with care arrangements, but debt and property is a different skill. And so through the service level agreement that our corporate legal colleagues have, we engage the services of Blake Morgan solicitors, who have specialist solicitors within their service who specialise in this field of work. And that's been really helpful, because not only has it given us the dedicated legal advice that we've wanted to source, but also it's upskilled our staff, because we now have monthly legal surgeries, and that gives us the opportunity to bring those complex cases and talk them through. That skills our staff so that they have a better understanding of processes and the complexities, and also gives an opportunity for our in-house Flintshire Legal Services to also benefit from that, and that can only be a good thing. And then as part of the processes as well, we've engaged so that we have a much better understanding of the different types of legal instruments that are available to us and in what circumstances. There is still work to be done. You'll know that the Mosaic system is coming on stream in November, hopefully, of this year. And we need to build in the processes that we have in Paris, but enhance them further, because Mosaic has more functionality attached to it, and to build that interface with contracts. So ideally, the audit referred to having a matrix and having, you know, one-stop shop, if you like, of information in one place. We do have a spreadsheet that helps to support us, and audit don't like spreadsheets, and I don't know how much I do sometimes either. However, because we do operate with different systems that have different bits of information in them, then currently we're working on that. How do we get everything together into one place? So that is a manual task that we do at the moment, and that works well. But I know that audit colleagues would like that to be a more automated task, because as we all know, if it's manual, there is the opportunity for human error in the system as well. But we have robust checks to ensure that that is minimised. But it's a complex field, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. I'll open up to members for any comments or questions. Can't see anybody indicating yet. I had one, which was risk 3, which is identified as the charge placed against properties potentially not being able to stand up against challenge. I was just wondering, historically, have there been many cases of people successfully challenging the charges that are placed on properties?
Thank you, Chair. We've had one debt write-off that we took to, I want to say, Crosk. I was there and I can't remember. I'm so sorry. It's all a blur, isn't it? You see the same people everywhere, don't you? So I forget where we are. That was for £49,500. That's been the only write-off of this nature that we've had within the time that I've been managing this service. So that doesn't mean there won't be others, but over this period of time. And so that, I think that whilst we have the audit very clearly picked up that, you know, we didn't have all the right instruments for the right types of debt, and hence engaging in that conversation with Blake Morgan. What we do have is strong conversation links with families, because ideally, you don't want to go down the legal route anyway. What you want to do is have a supportive conversation with the family to be able to arrange how that, you know, if they're struggling with their repayments of that for whatever reason, putting a process in place that makes that achievable for them and recovers the debt for the authority, which is exactly where you want to be. And also helping families to understand what the agreement is. So we now always have a deferred payment agreement in place, so family understands what their obligations are and how that's going to transpire over a period of time, so they have that transparency, I suppose, of what we have. So yeah, it's been really helpful and useful to have the independent oversight over, you know, a process that's been there for a long time, and looking at it with fresh eyes is incredibly helpful.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else, so if not, we'll move to the recommendation, which is that members are asked to consider and be assured by the actions taken following the audit. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Coppell? Councillor Healy, is that you seconding? Thank you. All those in favour? That's everybody again, thank you. Just let Steve go and get Councillor Thew so she can come back in. And just as Steve's doing that, just going to have a slight change to the order of the agenda, so that agenda item 9 will come after agenda item 11. That's so that Hayley's can present on both of those back to back as opposed to being separate, if that's okay with everybody. So we'll take agenda item 10 next, once Linda's back in the room. We have, well, I was going to say we've been here for 2 hours. We haven't because we were a little bit delayed, but we could, if members wanted to, hold a short comfort break now, and then carry on. What do people think? I'm getting a couple of nods. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute comfort break now. So if members could be back for 4:10, we'll begin again then. Thank you. Right, everybody, we're back and we will move on to agenda item 10, which is in-house regulated services report. And I'll hand over for this to Mark Holt, who's online.
Thank you, Chair. Pranada, and thank you for the opportunity for me to feedback on the my annual report around the state of in-house services at Flintshire. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Holt. I'm the responsible individual for Flintshire, and it's my job to ensure that we are meeting the statutory requirements as set out in the Regulation and Inspection of Social Care Wales Act of 2016, also known as RISCA. It's easier to say RISCA. And there's 84 regulations within that, and it sets down the expectations of how our care services should be delivered and how we keep our service users, our residents, tenants, and people who use our services safe. This covers all of the services within Flintshire that are in-house. So residential care, that's Marleyfield House, Llys Gwenfrwd, and now T. Croesati, previously Croesati. I'll touch on that in a moment or two. We have 3 domiciliary care provisions across Mould, Deeside and Holywell. We also have 4 extra care schemes. We've got Llys Eleanor, Llys Jasmine, Llys Reddington and Placer Owen. And we also have 2 respite houses for adults with a learning disability. That's Havod and Woodley. And we have 17 supported living houses, again, for adults with a learning disability. So it's a very comprehensive service. There's 480 direct care staff that work in the service, and it delivers a huge amount of care and support to some of the most vulnerable adults in our communities. I probably just want to briefly touch on the fact that the report maybe gives some of this work a little bit of a disservice, or does it a disservice, because my job is to ensure that the quality and the standards are met, that we're meeting and achieving a very high standard. There's an awful lot of work goes into that, both from myself but also from the managers and the teams, in terms of ensuring that the quality is there. So what the report doesn't talk about is my process, which, whilst I have to go to every service every 3 months, within that I collect a lot of evidence and analysis around how the services are providing the information, how they're supporting individuals. That evidence then links to Care Inspectorate Wales and their framework of key lines of inquiry, and then I monitor the services based on the requirements that CIW asks for. On top of that, there is then an individual action plan that each manager must adhere to try and keep constantly improving their service. I'm really happy to report that all of the services have done that in the last 12 months. The standard of care is exceptionally high. We had this year 2 additional inspections from Care Inspectorate Wales, One was in Havod, and it got we got a good rating with a number of areas touching on excellent. And then we had a 5-day inspection, which was exceptionally rigorous across domiciliary care. And again, that was exactly the same. It was a good rating with a number of areas touching on excellent. My own findings show that we've seen a significant improvement in personal plans and personal care plans, the way they're developed with the individual. And I think that's been particularly satisfying. I spoke to one individual last week who said, nothing is ever decided without me. And that's the right way for a service to be delivered. The person who's in receipt of it has to be at the centre of it. And I'm pleased to report that's across the board. All services are reporting that and have evidence to support that. We've seen a number of services now reaching a gold standard through Progress for Providers, and that's a quality mark which is offered independently. Nice. And that again gives further reassurance in terms of in terms of the quality that we're delivering. And another part which, before I talk about some of the additional achievements, whilst there's a lot of fantastic stuff goes on within the services, there are times when things don't go right. And one of the measures that I put on is how do we deal with safeguarding issues? So when there is a mistake happens or when something goes wrong, how do each of the services? And for me, the strongest measure is the fact that there is transparency and openness. For example, a couple of weeks ago, there was a medication error. We don't like medication errors, but we administer over 1 million different medications in 12 months. It's absolutely massive in terms of the amount we do. And that mistake was reported by the member of staff. There wasn't a blame culture. It was investigated. We took the relevant action in terms of the individual, and that was then reported to our independent safeguarding team and Care Inspectorate Wales. And I think it's important that we do that and that we're seen to be very open and transparent in everything that we do. I won't go into the detail of each service area, just to give you the reassurance as a committee that all of the in-house services are performing to a level that I'm pleased with. There's still areas we can improve, but all the managers are working to become excellent on all elements of their care, support and leadership. But it's more than that. So if we look at 1.10 and some of the achievements that we've had over the last year, some of you will know, and some of you have visited the incredible T. Croisati. It's a 56-bed, brand new, state-of-the-art care home for older people with a focus around both EMI, supporting people with cognitive and memory challenges, but also will be very shortly opening 12 additional discharge to recover and assess beds to complement the 16 that we already successfully operate at Marleyfield House. We've improved our cultural enrichment. This was based on the back of some of the comments that came from this committee last year. We've had an incredible collaboration with the Welsh National Orchestra, who've performed at all 3 of our residential care homes. I've seen the videos of it. They were absolutely incredible, and the residents loved it. The families were invited. It was magical the way they did it, and we're going to continue that collaboration over the next 12 months. We had Rhiannon Bowen-Davis, who's the Older People's Commissioner for Wales, visited and was so impressed by the work we were doing, particularly at Marleyfield House, that she's requested to return to Flintshire and focus a longer period of work in both Marleyfield House and also some of our other services to demonstrate the positive work we're doing for older people. Our community integration has improved significantly. I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago to be in one of the extra care schemes whilst a local primary school visited, and it was just, I don't think I've had that much fun for a long time. The amount of laughter, and And what was really interesting is it was joint curiosity. Young people wanting to learn from older people, and older people wanted to learn from young people, and it showed the power of intergenerational work, and that's something all the managers are working to develop. We continue to work hard in terms of improving our staff well-being. It is a really hard job. I think some of the reports that have already come previously touch on that. Care is a really difficult role to play, and it's important that we look after our workforce. For example, Marleyfield House has just set up a new wellbeing room for their staff, and that's working really well. And in supported living, they now have wellbeing breakout groups, because a lot of the staff work independently, so they're now working as teams to offer peer support, and that again is being received really positively from staff. It was interesting. I had a conversation with Jane Davis a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about crisis interventions from the service because we had some snow, and Jane commented that there never really is a crisis within the service, and I think because the staff just get on with what they do, and I think that was shown particularly in the work that went on when we had the water shortage crisis last year. It was significant, and if you consider that as individuals and individual householders, we were concerned about how we were going to get water for our families of 3, 4, 5 people living in the house. Managers were trying to do that for 70, 80 people, and they did it. The lengths they went to were extraordinary. Some of the tales that the staff sourcing water from all kinds of places, and that's a testament to the work that they do and how they go above and beyond. It's worth noting that at least Raddington also, along with the tenants and the staff, took the empty water bottles that they had from the crisis and turned it into the most amazing poppy display for Remembrance Day, which won a local award. And again, it just shows the creativity when people work in collaboration and are working in a positive environment. There are some challenges, so some of them have already been discussed. So workforce recruitment remains difficult. Unfortunately, a lot of the public who don't work in care, their only experience of it is quite often when they see negative stories in the media or on Panorama, etc. And it's really difficult to change people's perception, and the staff do go above and beyond. So the managers will go out and recruit. They'll go to recruitment events. Jane's already spoken about some of the recruitment events that she attends. So it really is the whole service takes that responsibility, but it is a challenge, and in particular in domiciliary care. Now, as I sit here now, the rain is pouring down, and there are staff out and about in our local community, and they will be up until 11 o'clock tonight offering care and support to those vulnerable adults. The financial pressures we've already talked about, or has been talked about in this committee, and that's an ongoing challenge. And also the systemic demand, the demand that comes from health and our health colleagues. And we are currently in the process of developing a long-term strategy for the services, which will come to this committee in the not too distant future. And some of that will be looking at how we tackle and support our health colleagues while still delivering against our council priorities. So I apologise for rattling through that, but hopefully it gives you a bit of a flavour of the work we're doing, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Mackie.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the report, Mark. You must have a magic wand or something, because I've read this through and I think I found one issue, and that was to do with meals. 107, something's wrong with the quality of food in the extra care facilities. That's not your responsibility anyway, is it? Not specifically. I wondered whether you could take over Betsy Cadwallader or somebody like that, and sort of get them sort of...
More than happy to.
Well, there we are. I do believe they have difficulty finding chief executives, actually. Perhaps they haven't at the moment, but still. No, I was joking aside, great report. And I just loved to hear so many positives. Your comments about the recruitment, we've already discussed it earlier in this committee today. I don't know if you heard it, because, yeah, it just seems to be that the public have got the wrong impression about working with other people for some reason, and we've really got to change that. We've really got to get that across somehow. I don't really know how we do it, but thank you for the report. Great report, and you obviously are doing something right. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Few.
This is a bit off-piste really, but I've got a bugbear about people being on the same medication for many, many years without a review. Is it possible to get the people in these care homes to have an annual review of their medication? I know it'll be the doctor's responsibility, but I'm certain that there are people out there that are on what they shouldn't be on. So is that a possibility within Flintshire to have our residents checked to ensure they are on the correct medication and the correct dosage? Thank you.
Good point.
Mark, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, it is a challenge. The care home managers in particular, the residential care home managers, do work closely with their local GPs, and I will be honest, there are some absolutely fantastic GP surgeries, and they do work proactively for individuals. There are others where it is a little bit more challenging. We don't have direct control over that, but we certainly will work with our BCU colleagues, and I work with pharmacy and GPs in terms of what the services look like and the services that people receive. What I would say is our discharge to recover and assess, both in Marleyfield and soon to be in T. Cruisati, is seeing significant improvements in that area, because we have advanced nurse practitioners who work directly with us. We've seen a significant improvement and reduction in the amount of medication that's being prescribed for individuals, and the reviews are taking place. So whilst that is only sort of 16 beds in Marleyfield and an additional 12 in T. Cruisati, it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Brilliant, thank you. Good news.
Councillor Jones.
Pnaudar. Just want to put on record a massive thanks to Mark and all the staff in all our services, our extra cares, our residential, our supported living. We have got some amazing services in Flintshire. I mean, we really have. We've got amazing managers, we've got amazing staff. The people who they look after are so well cared for, and they're always so happy. Myself and Craig quite often go out and visit. We try to get out there at least twice a year to see all our supported living houses, all our extra cares, all our residential, and we're always welcomed. And we have a lovely couple of hours spent at each facility, because the people who are there are inviting us into their home, and we always end up having tea and cakes while we're there, don't we? But they're always so lovely, and we know that in-house care in Flintshire is just second to none. It's absolutely amazing, and that's all down to Mark, his team, and all our managers that look after our care homes and our extra cares, and, as I say, supported living right across the board. We have got some brilliant in-house care, and if anybody ever wants to visit, I'm sure, especially the new T. Cruisati, which is absolutely amazing, I'm sure it can be arranged that Mark will invite you in and give you a tour. But you would have to have an invite, because it's somebody's home. But yeah, we're really proud of all our staff and all the facilities that we provide. And a lot of that has been done, Craig mentioned before, RIF money, which is the integrated fund that we We work in collaboration with the RPB, the Regional Partnership Board, on. A lot of that money has been spent doing capital programmes in Flintshire. For example, Marleyfield, Ati, and we're working in collaboration with health on all these. And it's a really good partnership, and we couldn't do without that grant money, could we? It's built us an awful lot of amazing facilities. So that's what the RIF money goes towards. That's why we pay in to the collaboration pot, because we get an awful lot back out of it. You've only got to go to Marleyfield to see what an amazing facility was built on RIF, wasn't it? So that's, I just wanted to add that in, because they're not built by a magic wand. They're built with a lot of hard work, a lot of collaborative working and partnership working, and money from Welsh Government, and in collaboration with health as well. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mark, for your report. It's a great job you're doing, caring for elderly, and it's fantastic. My question is just one question. How is recruitment going for domiciliary workers? That's my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Healy. It is difficult. We have, in the last 12 months, there has been an improvement, but the numbers are still low. So as it stands at the moment, I have, across the 3 localities, Mould, Deeside and Holywell, I've got 27 vacancies for us to be fully operational. So you can see the scale. In recent weeks, we have seen a slight upturn, but I'm only talking about, we've recruited 4 new members of staff. So it's an ongoing challenge. What I would say is the managers have a fantastic team, and they do pull out all the stops to try and get people out of hospital. Staff will pick up extra shifts, extra hours. We need to manage that really carefully, because we don't want to burn out the workforce. But it is difficult, Councillor. There's no doubt about it. And whilst Councillor Mackie did mention a magic wand, I don't have a magic wand on recruitment, unfortunately. I wish I did, because it is without doubt the most difficult part of the job.
That was everybody who's indicated, so unless anybody else would like to ask any questions, we'll move to the recommendations. There's 2 of them. The first one is members review the responsible individuals assessment of in-house regulated services for adults, and that members recognise the achievements of the service and the outcomes secured by the in-house workforce in delivering high quality and effective care and support services. Councillor Mackie to move that. Councillor Healy to second. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. We will move on to agenda item 11, which is supporting vulnerable families, and I'll pass over to Sarah Grant for this item.
Thank you, everybody. I've been told we've got to keep this short and snappy, so that's what I'm going to aim to do. Okay, so this report this afternoon is all about how we support our vulnerable families in Flintshire. The way we do this absolutely relies on robust infrastructure. We know that. A good practice model, a strong understanding of thresholds of intervention, and funding to support all of this. In Flintshire, from the report, you can see from the report that's been submitted today, we offer a vast carousel of initiatives which strengthen and support currently our families. We've got our early help service, we have our targeted support team, we have our MST CAN service, we have our sidestep project. That's to name but a few that we are very much involved with. Each have their significance and a part to play in supporting our most vulnerable families, in preventing them from escalating further into the statutory systems. But underpinning this is the absolute drive, and I can't emphasise this enough, all of this work that goes in to support our vulnerable families. At the heart of all of this is keeping our families together and keeping our children in their families, rather than having to be put into a position where children are being removed from their families. So I think it's really important that the children are seen and the families are seen at the centre of this, in terms of that being able to keep them together. The risk we hold currently in the local authority is that we rely significantly on grant funding for many of these services that we put in place for our vulnerable families. And whilst we absolutely use them and overuse them, and we really would be lost without them, the pressure remains about sustainability for those services, because we're constantly relying on that grant funding. If we focus the lens on the cost aspect of the vulnerability, we know that the cost of delivering early help and support to vulnerable families is modest compared to the long-term savings of escalation. The demand for early help to families remains incredibly high. We've discussed today across both areas, the demand into social care continues to rise. If we focus on our MST CAN project, for instance, we've got, at the moment, we run this as a pilot project. We are not guaranteed funding for this beyond the end of this year. This service do amazing work to support some of our most vulnerable families in helping them stay together. So those are the kind of pressures that we've got at the moment. The Sidestep project relies on the National Lottery funding. So if we look at all of that work that they do, and the intensity of that in terms of the vulnerable families and keeping our families together, we totally use them and would be lost without them. So I think the message here is it's around that sustainability in terms of being able to continue with those long term. You'll see from the report about the future things that we're looking at. When I talked earlier about a robust infrastructure, a good practice model, we are now driving our effective child protection model. We have our ECP lead that is in post. I've spoken about this previously, and no doubt I will give an update at some point in the future. That worker's Kate Brooks, her name is. She's very much embedding all of that work now in terms of collaborative conversations. The NSPCC graded care profile, that's another aspect of our practice model that we're looking to embed. So all of these things are being driven at a pace, but they all come at a cost in terms of funding and sustainability. We know that CIW want us to embed those models. It's been very much picked up in our reports and in the work and the conversations that we have with CIW. So we're driving those at pace. And you can see from the report around the family hub development, again, that's going to be, it's in very early stages, but this could possibly be a very important aspect of supporting our most vulnerable families, particularly at that early stage, and it being able to look at co-location and all of that multi-agency work at a different level in terms of that, quick, fast, intense support where you've got agencies together in a co-located place, being able to meet need and look at those together, putting everyone's heads together. The biggest issues for us, as I've kind of spoken about, is around the cost of delivering early help. If we look at the back of the report, it talks there very clearly around the prevention of escalation to high-cost statutory services. It talks about avoiding even a small number of escalations each year more than offsets the cost of maintaining early help capacity. So I suppose my message today is, and I'm hoping that is coming across loud and clear, is that we really do need to continue to have that focus and that lens on the early help for our most vulnerable families and ensure that we support that, because if we don't, then the costs to the local authority will escalate, but equally the most important thing is that our children and families will not get the services and will not get what they need, the right service at the right time. Was that short and sharp enough, Craig? Any questions?
I don't see anybody in. Oh, Councillor Healy.
I totally agree with you. Grant funding is very, very important. And we must remember in society, it's getting worse. As you just have to look at the news and there's abuse. So I don't think we can cut, or in fact, if I had my way, I would give you more. What my question is, you know, the early hub you're going to have. Can you tell me more? What will happen there? Is it where families can go? And under that umbrella is all the help that they can achieve? Thank you.
So I'm going to be perfectly honest and transparent that these conversations are very early at the moment. So the idea is that we do have we have the drop-ins, we have families being able to access services through there, we have multi-agency teams in there. The idea would be that we almost have it kind of across the generations, really, in some ways. But these conversations are very early. It's relying on money, it's relying on a property, it's relying on grant funding. So Craig might want to come in and say a bit more there.
Yeah, we see it as the natural progression. We've set up an early help hub, but we really need that physical base where we bring not just professionals, but the families that need that professional support together. And as Sarah said, we've got the ambition, and we're in discussion with third sector and with health colleagues and other parts of the council about how we take those services to wrap around families. We've got an initial set of funding which will enable us to look at business case, but then if we'd need to get another round of funding to develop really comprehensive, where does the capital, where does the revenue money come from, and if all of that stacks up, we then are able to put a comprehensive bid into Welsh Government. So I absolutely understand kind of Sarah's message that it's early days, because it's difficult because we want to engage with communities, we want to understand what the families want, but there's lots of dependencies, and if we don't get Welsh Government funding at the end of it, it won't happen. So we're having to be bold, be innovative, think differently, whereas at the same time manage expectations. But if we can get the right model, get the right way, if this funding doesn't come, there'll be other funding, and we'll just carry on and be tenacious around it, because we really think it's the right way to go, don't we, Sarah?
Any other questions from members? Doesn't look like it. We'll move to the recommendation, which is that members review the service approach to supporting vulnerable families through early intervention, including further initiatives to strengthen and enhance our offer. So do I have a mover for that? Councillor Healy. Seconder, Councillor Lister. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. We'll now move to, it's back to agenda item 9, which is the Oxford Brain Story. So I'll hand over to Hayley Welch for this item.
Oh, talking about Chair and members, thank you very much for inviting me here today and receiving this report. This is an update report on the Oxford Brain Story, which some members will have had some information about in the past. And I've come here today to update on the progress because the regional pilot has come to an end. And you can see from the report the progress that's been made in rolling this out to members of staff, mainly in the health and social care sector and within children's services in Flintshire. So as you can see from the report, the Oxford Brain Story the goal is to bridge the gap between neurodevelopmental science and practitioner knowledge. So the Oxford Brain Story is a framework and it's a training programme which brings those two things together. It outlines very clearly through a series of short films, short conversations, with really clear metaphors for how infant brain development happens and how parents and carers respond to their infants and grow infant brains so that they can be healthy. What that does is it brings to the forefront of practitioners' minds when they are interacting with parents and children about how they promote those connections and those early developmental opportunities. Now, the importance of delivering this is because of the impact that early brain development has on future potential for adults in our societies. And as you can see from the report, we talk about the trauma-informed approach and compensating for adverse childhood experiences. We know that early childhood experiences shape and determine health outcomes for older people. The issue we've got is that the neuroscience isn't directly translated into practice, and although our practitioners within children's services and health services have lots of training, it often doesn't directly relate back to neurodevelopment and how that can impact wider concerns. As you can see from point 104, we talk about how the brain story can mitigate the effects of adversity if practitioners are really well informed as they go about their daily lives. So 1.06 offers a description of the brain story, and I know some members have had the benefit of some of the activities that form part of the brain story. And what it does is it translates very complex language and complex neuroscience into very practical activities. So it includes a suite of tools and resources, visual metaphors, along a certified training programme. Flintshire was involved in the development of this on a regional basis, and it's been since rolled out to over 200 practitioners on a regional and local basis from childcare, health and children's services. You'll see from the appendix that following the conclusion of the pilot, a number of recommendations were made by an independent evaluator. And I think that at this point that we're at with Oxford Brain Story, and I won't go into great detail on 1.09, which is the post-course evaluation findings, which are unequivocally positive about how practitioners have responded to this. I think at this point in time, we'd like to understand how this is best going to be implemented within Flintshire, as well as on a regional level, because the local feedback that we've got is that this could be a really useful tool in developing Flintshire's practitioners, as well as the wider goal of making sure this is continued on a regional basis. So we've got really, really clear responses. Most of the attendees rated the training 9 out of 10 or higher, and their goal was to implement it in their daily practice. It does really align well with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And because this again is a focus on prevention, long-term outcomes and collaboration, we really want to embed this within the service. And just talking about resources, it brings multi-agency teams together for a very, very cost-effective way of delivering this. In terms of strengthening early childhood practice, I'd also like to point out that this is very relevant to the first 1,000 days, and we hear a lot about that. But if you go into the detail of the research and the report, you'll see that this is applicable to many of children's life's transitions. So any time where children are having a transition between circumstances, or particularly where there are opportunities for brain development, such as in sort of 7 to 8 year olds, 14 and 15-year-olds, the research is just as applicable there. The long-term and community benefits are outlined in the research and the report that I've shared with you. It's really proactive in shaping the development of long-term skills, and also in potentially shaping how families in Flintshire grow up with us and with our services. We want to see really clear benefits from this, and what we think is that this will be really effective rolled out on a wider scale to more practitioners, not just those involved directly with very young children. So Oxford Brain Story really supports and promotes the development of very strong family relationships. And just sort of referencing Sarah's report, I think that this is a really great addition to the suite of offers that Flintshire has at the moment. And what I'd like to do is share a video with you, a short 2-minute video, which will link the two reports that I'm bringing to people today and hopefully bring this to life.
When we're born, we don't have a guide for handling all the feelings we encounter. So when we're young and big feelings like fear, frustration or excitement come up, we don't always know how to respond. That's normal. But children can learn how to deal with these feelings with guidance from caring adults. One way this happens is through something called co-regulation. Co-regulation means using our calm presence to help a child understand and manage their emotions, helping them cope and return to calm. To do this, we often have to start by regulating our own feelings, like putting on your oxygen mask first on a plane. We have to steady ourselves to support others. Co-regulation looks different for each child, and it changes as they grow. For babies, it's as simple as being cuddled, sung to or rocked to help them to calm down when they are crying. For young children, it could be talking through their feelings, giving them space to calm down, or just sitting and breathing together until the storm passes. It's not about trying to squash the feelings. It's okay for children to feel sad, scared or angry at times. When we co-regulate, we help them to manage these feelings. People once thought co-regulation made children too dependent, but now the science shows it builds their independence. When adults respond sensitively to a child's distress, it builds a child's trust, security and belief that the world is safe. It shows them they are deeply loved. Through co-regulation, we can help children learn how to understand and manage all sorts of different emotions. And that builds their wider social and emotional skills. Skills which are vital for shaping a happy, healthy life.
Thank you, Hayley. I'll open up to any questions from members. Councillor Lister.
It, but I'll see what comes out. I love this, and it's very in tune, I think, with how I see bringing up children. I was just wondering, like, it's brilliant, isn't it? And it's obviously an approach, and it would be really beneficial for teachers, childcare workers, everybody. Is Flinch's role in this to provide that training? Or is that done by an external agency?
So I think this is the question for today, because we've brought this in-house and we've adopted a train the trainer approach. So our workforce development lead in early years has just completed that train the trainer and is able to roll this out to a wider audience. But obviously we want to make sure that it's targeted at the right people. And I think that your suggestion of education and the wider community in Flintshire is really helpful.
And is it something that you can... Is it something that you can offer that private providers can buy from Flintshire, if that makes sense?
Yes, it is at the moment. So it's a chargeable offer nationally, but we've now got the facility to deliver this in-house. But yes, it could be charged for.
Councillor Mackey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we came and looked at it, didn't we? And we did it. The only trouble was, I think I'm the only member of the committee. I think you've been to it, haven't you? Yeah. But I think I'm the only one who's still on the committee. And oh, sorry. Right. Okay. Sorry. It was really good. It was really good. It was eye-opening. And it, it covered the background of it, particularly, which I thought, was useful for somebody like me. So yeah, I think it's really good. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair Diakon. My question is, would you take this into education, and I would say, I don't know, it's not my expertise, but I would say take it to primary schools, because I am a great believer, start from very young. And I remember an incident when I had my daughter, my eldest daughter. I brought my children up, and I remember going to the clinic, and I remember a nurse saying this to me. She said, "You're very attached to your baby." And I said, "Yeah, because I just wanted to know I'm around and I do." She said, "But you know, if you get too attached, it's not a very good thing." I'm talking 40 years ago, yeah. And then I came home and I was talking to my husband, my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law said, "Yes, she never cries. As soon as she moves, you're there." And I am a great believer. The more love you give children, the bond is so great. The bond between me and my two daughters were fantastic. And I totally agree with whatever you say. And would it be advisable that you could work with Sarah, put the two together? Thank you.
In response to the first section of your question, I think that the goal is to understand what the need is in education and where it would be most appropriate. And I think that primary school would be a really nice place to start. And secondly, yes, I agree with everything you said.
I think for me, we've got the capability and skills now. It's about how we roll it out. And schools are a great place to start, but there's a lot of demand on schools. There's a lot that teachers have to attend in terms of training. There's only a finite number of days. There are other initiatives that this fits with beautifully around trauma-informed. So what we need to do, as Hayley said, is really work with education, work with social services, and really understand where it fits and how we do that in a planned, rolled out way. So it won't be a big bang, but it will be actually, where do we take it and how do we make sure that it's rolled out in a way that gets impact and starts to make that difference? Because, the thing that I hear and observe is around the challenges around behaviour and the links to actually what we can do in the early years and support parents and support families. So that's all the work that Hayley team's doing, and we want it as a resource that's out there supporting.
And just on the back of that, your question around us working closer together, those conversations are already happening. That work is we're already bringing early health, early years closer together, and there's some really good work going on at the moment around exactly what Craig has just said and Hayley. So,
Councillor Lister.
It was sort of more of a practical thing on that note. My children are at primary school, and last week we had a PSE sort of evening for the parents, and there were representatives from Flintshire Education Services there. And I think that would be, because to work with the families is really, I think it would be very, very strong. And we were just able to ask questions in a sort of drop in around, and that kind of thing in primary schools would, I think, be really, really invaluable. It was certainly very interesting for me to go around as a parent and talk to all the different representatives from different agencies. But yeah, to have the Oxford Brain Story there represented in schools, sort of parents' evenings would be fantastic if there's capacity to do that.
Right, we'll move to the recommendations. There's 4 of them. Members note the findings of the North Wales Oxford Brain Story evaluation and the positive impact on early years practice. The members support continued development and expansion of the pilot across Flintshire and the wider region. Members support the development of an approach that integrates OBS training into induction processes for new staff, and the members note ongoing awareness raising and dissemination of OBS findings across North Wales services. So do I have a mover for those? Councillor Healy, Councillor Lister to second. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the final agenda item, which is agenda item 12. And again, this is with Hayley, and it's the development and impact of speech, language and communication support in early years services.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm moving on to reference speech, language and communication services in Flintshire, and they are not separate from the item that I've just discussed. They're very integrated. You can see from the report the definitions of speech, language and communication, so I won't go over those, but they're really important to understand that the development of speech, language and communication is absolutely fundamental to a child's ongoing success in life. And the point I'd really like to emphasise from the summary is that parents and immediate caregivers are the most important people in a child's life when it comes to language development. It doesn't sit with childcare, it doesn't sit with school, it must sit with the parents and the immediate caregivers around that child for it to work effectively. So 1.01, there is quite a long definition of speech, language and communication and what that's broken down into. And I think that in Flintshire, we've been very successful in understanding those three different elements of how children acquire language and how that's really important to their overall development. The early identification and targeted intervention are critical to preventing long-term disadvantage. Now, when we look at the figures, over 10% of children and young people in the UK have persistent speech, language and communication needs that can limit their ability to learn. Now, what that means is that 10% of children is critical anyway, but what we also need to look at is how overrepresented those 10% of children are in the youth justice and prison population. So it's really vital that we see speech, language and communication as really integral a part of development. And I think sometimes we focus on different parts of children's development. The other thing I'd like to highlight, 1.02, is that Flying Start operates in the most disadvantaged areas of Flintshire because the deprivation impacts on children's development. So we know that where we're working in areas of deprivation, we can have the most impact. And one thing that's I find people find quite surprising is that vocabulary at age 5 is the best predictor about whether children are able to escape poverty and increase their life chances. So the strategic importance of speech, language and communication support sits alongside other health measures. It sits really well along socio-emotional development, health measures, diet and things like that, and it needs to be seen as an element in its own right. So we work from the Welsh Government Guidance for Speech, Language and Communication. In Flintshire, we deliver those really comprehensively according to the guidance, and we offer a range of interventions, home visit-based and group-based interventions. You can see a description of the team. We're a multi-agency team with local authority teams and commissioned health service staff as well, and we all work really closely together. The team's really instrumental in fostering speech, language and communication development in childcare settings as well, because the Flying Start childcare offer is really fundamental to children's development. So this includes the world of childcare practitioners as well. We've given at 1.06 a definition of some of the interventions and practice that we have across Flintshire, which due to time I won't go into huge amounts of detail, but we've got such a range of measures that what we try to do is from the antenatal stage, our speech and language therapist comes in and speaks to parents about language acquisition in the womb, and that builds on with baby groups where we're really encouraging parental interaction, we're really encouraging sound making. But what I want to emphasize today is that speech, language and communication isn't about words, it's about the relationship between the parent and the child. So not only is vocabulary an indication of how well a child can progress and learn, it's an indication of the quality of the relationship that the parent has with the child. So what we're trying to do is bring the right interventions in at the right time. And this is really true for cases where children are potentially on the child protection register if there are safeguarding concerns, because where that relationship with the parent, between the parent and the child isn't brilliant, we know that we can do work to support that. So in 1.06, the final point there is the Paris outcome measure, and this is a measure that was introduced by Welsh Government last year, where the evaluation tool for our speech and language interventions is actually a measure of the quality of the relationship between the child and their caregiver, and also the home environment, the environment that that child's being brought into, which relates back to Sarah's point about the neglect framework and tools used there. Outcomes and impact, again, I've presented quite a comprehensive overview of some of the progress that children make in their language development and language acquisition. I think it might be worth noting that the majority of children do progress due to the pathway and the interventions, but there is a residual of approximately 10% of children who haven't made the necessary progress over the course of about 6 months to a year once those speech, language and communication needs are identified, which really ties in with the national statistics of 10% of people having a residual speech and language need. What we're doing in Flintshire is we're identifying that 10% before they get to the age of 4. So what happens is they go into core speech and language services earlier. They are identified before they go to school and the right support put in place. So we can't deal with persistent speech and language needs, and sometimes the relationship between the parent and the child is not great, so we can't solve that. But what we would like to highlight is the early intervention work that's going on in Flintshire. Further to this report, and I've mentioned what our team might do in terms of suggestions. We go in with ideas. It's really simple stuff. I know we're running really late, but yesterday I joined a group of parents where we made these. So the idea is that parents come into the groups, and instead of anything that is overwhelming, we don't show lots of word. We're very aware of parental literacy levels in Flintshire, so we're focusing on conversation starters between parents and children. And this is it's making this is a brilliant way of caregivers being able to communicate with their children and their toddlers. But also, instead of looking at a TV, the amount of fun that you could have with this, the noises, the way that you can start conversations is really effective. There is, since I wrote this report, there's been a development in that the UK government have issued a call for evidence in the use of screens in infancy and early childhood. And I think this is one of the things that our team are going to be really effective in supporting. They're already having conversations with parents about appropriate screen use with toddlers, which is very, very, very little, and how we take that forward and bring that into our practice. The speech, language and communication model that is developed by Flying Start, developed by Welsh Government, what we're doing in Flintshire is part of that model. But what I'd like to highlight is that the cohesion of the pathway that children follow from the antenatal period through to age 4, the strands that we follow, making sure that every child under the Flying Start programme has a screening at 20 months and then has that ongoing support. We're making a lot more effective use of our resource within the service by, we don't offer this out necessarily as a universal pathway, but for those families that need it, they're able to draw on the support as and when they need it. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Hayley. Councillor Mackie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. It's something that's very important. This is my education file. On the 23rd of October, this came up in education. And I just want to give you some facts. You've given us some numbers. These are some numbers that were reported to the Education Scrutiny Committee. And I'm going to start with this one. This is reports on ALN and SEN in maintained schools by type of need, 2024. The top one is speech, language and communication difficulties. So there you can see it. That is 18,000. So of that cohort, 18,000, the biggest issue by a mile. That's right. This is a table produced by Youth Justice. You mentioned Youth Justice, and here you've got all the various issues that their clients exhibit. 38% of children and young people presented with speech, language and communication needs. So, I mean, this is supporting what you've said. But the really interesting thing was this comment within the report. It said, to embed speech and language therapy into every youth justice team, and as the provision of such services within youth justice is not statutory, health boards in Wales do not currently have dedicated staffing or funding to resource to provide it, which I thought, when you look at the other things I've shown you, was absolutely terrible, because clearly it's a vital situation, a vital matter, something that we've got to get to terms with. And obviously the authorities decided that it's going to do it itself. But so the question I'm coming to, I'll get there in the end, is that it's not, is it just, you said it's just Flying Start, and I'm not quite sure what you said about universal provision of this. So that's my question.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very pertinent question. The speech, language and communication offer in Flintshire is based around Flying Start, which, as you are aware, is postcode targeted. If I just draw your attention to, I'm really sorry, I've lost which point I need to refer to, but any child in Flintshire can be referred in for speech and language for the support that I've described, either by a parental self-referral or by a health visitor or by a childcare setting. And what I've tried to highlight, you'll see a table in 1.09 is the increase in referrals for speech, language and communication that are coming in from our own areas, but also from our outreach service as well.
I think that is so important, because these sorts of problems don't occur, they're not governed by postcodes. And I've always felt that about Flying Start, that you can have somebody living there who's just outside, still has the problem, but no, sorry, you're not somebody there. So it's just a personal comment, that.
May I come in on that, Chair? So our groups that we run are open to the community. So the stay and play groups that we run are open access. And from those groups, you might be able to progress into one of our dedicated speech and language groups. And that's what we want to do with speech, language and communication, make it very open across Flintshire.
Councillor Lister.
Thank you. They're all very connected, aren't they? The reports that we've had today and with Sarah's report as well. And I do feel really strongly that this is an investment, isn't it? It's something that the local authority has to prioritise. If we want to lift people out of poverty, we need to improve their language. We need to support our most vulnerable children. And I just think we all need to bear that in mind when we make the decisions that we have that responsibility for. I did just have one question. And it was when I had my children before COVID, there were an abundance of toddler and parent groups to go to, singing and all the things that bring on language. And there was obviously a huge hiatus, which has probably had a massive impact now on children that are 5, 6, 7, isn't it? And their language. Are you seeing that? And have we been able to recover those groups? And because I think people's sort of mindsets on how you entertain your children have changed since COVID. I mean, I've noticed through my experience, primary school children speaking with American accents, because a lot of the language they've learned has come from YouTube, and it's a bit of a concern, I think. So I was just wondering if there was any kind of anything we can do really to bring back that parent toddler socializing really.
Thank you for your question. Yes, our goal, well, my goal in bringing this here today really is to raise that awareness and to let you know that we've got those informal groups running throughout Flintshire, where parents can come on a weekly basis. And what we're trying to do is promote that right from the baby groups that we run, and they are all open access. If you follow our social media pages through Family Information Service, you'll see where these groups are running. And I think that we need the whole community to promote it, not just have an awareness within our own service. And what you're sort of talking about needs to be wider than just when parents are in receipt of services. It needs to be a community-led message.
Do any other members, or would any other members like to ask any questions of Councillor Healy?
I just would like to say this is what I've heard here. It's fantastic. We have to let this go. And I must say, we cannot cut education and social care anymore. This is me. We can't cut this anymore. This is the young people of tomorrow. Next thing I just wanted to say is, I forgot now. Do you go to, how can I say, play groups? And do not forget the rural areas. Rural areas is very isolated, and like it's only like very small play groups. Like in my area, Hope, it's a play group in the hall there, in the church hall, and it must have only about 10 children and that. But please don't forget the rural areas as well. Thank you.
The outreach service that I mentioned earlier, what we are seeing is, like you say, we're not able to set up large groups in the rural areas. So we're doing more one-to-one in the family home. But we are looking for opportunities to run groups in Hope and Llai, and also in, we've got the other side of the county as well, in Gronant and Pennaforth, where we're finding that families are wanting this support.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Diolch. Just to say, I mean, Flying Start, we've always been the front runner on it, haven't we? It was developed in Flintshire. Carl Sargent brought it here. Our first one was Bryndever in Connors Quay. That's going back a long time now, isn't it? And it's just grown and grown and grown, gone from strength to strength. The team are absolutely fantastic, always have been. And it started small, but it's grown so much in the services that it now provides. It's also grown in areas as well, whereas it was a small area to begin with. I think we had a couple just dotted around in a few of the towns. Now it's virtually everywhere across Flintshire. And we've also got a lot of capital that we've provided for Flying Start. We've added on to schools. We've done extensions. We've done, haven't we? We've built on. We've done all sorts to our already existing schools for the Flying Start projects. So again, RIF funding has provided for that as well, hasn't it? Capital funding from Welsh Government again. They're really good actually with early years, aren't they? You know, providing funding, providing grants. And our early years team really know how to spend that money. You're so good at getting grant funding and spending it appropriately. So every child and families get the best service, best provision, because you and Gail and the team just know exactly what is needed for those children. And it's always spent wisely, isn't it? And this and with Sarah's team, with the Early Help Hub, again, we were a front runner with the Early Help Hub, weren't we? You know, it was tried by us, developed, and it's just gone again from strength to strength. And our early years provision in Flintshire is second to none. It is our children and our young children, babies, toddlers, school age, are so well looked after and well cared for. And this is a brilliant report, and I've really enjoyed listening to you again, Hayley. As always, you're so professional and you really know your stuff, don't you? You're absolutely amazing. And I've really enjoyed this afternoon. So thank you. And the Oxford Brain story, I think that's just something we've got to run with, isn't it? We really have. But Flying Start, we've always supported it, and we will continue to, won't we? Because it's been our baby, hasn't it?
I just wanted to thank elected members. It's been a long session. For me, we started with budget and started with pressures. And I think what I particularly have heard, especially as we've ended, is about services that I think the public don't know that the council provide, and they don't appreciate the work that where we're taking finite budget and investing it in services that we know have an evidence about impact and will make a difference. So I think it's quite fitting that we've almost done that full circle to demonstrate this isn't just about overspends and budget pressures. It is about using money wisely and about investment and about getting the best for our residents, even if they don't know what we're doing behind the scenes, because I think it is really important. And I just thank you for your support this afternoon in working through these reports.
Thank you, Craig. That just leaves us with the recommendations. So we're being asked to support three things. One is the promotion of awareness of Flying Start Flintshire comprehensive offer, supporting the Champion SLC support as a priority for early years investment, and supporting the integration of SLC strategies across wider early years and education services. Councillor Mackie to move, Councillor Thew to second. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting. DIOP, everybody. Thank you all for your time and engagement, and see you all soon. I close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.